Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and today I want to have a little chat about fear and writing. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, I just wanted to have a little bit of a ramble today about fear/anxiety, about getting one's writing or artwork for that matter out into the world. This is a little bit of a response video to a fab video that my good buddy Troy posted a couple of weeks ago now. That's Troy Tredup. I'll link to Troy's video in the description. Do go and have a watch of that if you've not seen it already. Troy's always got interesting stuff to say about pretty much anything, but particularly on writing. He's a published author and playwright, and so he's coming from a position of some experience, and I find that particularly valuable. Anyway, so the background to this is that after Troy posted a previous video to the one I'm talking about, a video about how to format work ready for submission, he noticed that quite a few folks talked about fear when it comes to submitting or sharing work, and he said he doesn't fully understand that fear and wanted to hear more from folks who do. So this will be my contribution to that discussion, if you like. He does, by his own admission, have a tremendous ego, his words. But yeah, I think he has, he's got a healthy ego, whereas mine is a little less robust, shall we say, especially when it comes to my creative endeavours. So Troy said he thought that perhaps that when folks talk about fear of submitting work, that it was perhaps less fear, and that really it was more just insecurity about letting your work go beyond yourself as the creator. And for me, there's some truth to that statement for sure. I'm definitely insecure about my work, but I'd still use the word fear to describe my feelings. I guess it's anxiety really, but fear and anxiety are the two sides of the same emotional coin, and they're somewhat interchangeable for me. Anxiety is a type of fear. I have dealt with general and social anxiety for pretty much my whole life, so it's not really surprising that I experience it in relation to my art and writing as well. But I certainly call the feeling that I get when I think about the possible outcome of releasing my work to the world fear. I'd call that feeling fear. I'd note that my fears are apply less to submissions, like to submitting a piece to a collection, like with Garbology that Troy is sort of helming with Ollie, the collection of awesome trash. And my fears are more geared sort of like self-published work or just sharing work, kind of whether it's on social media or as I say, self-publishing stuff and getting it on Amazon, etc. I don't fear rejection, for instance, not like I used to anyway. It's always disappointing to have work rejected, but a rejection doesn't necessarily mean that the work is bad. It might just not be right for that particular project, or it might just need some extra work doing to it. It's not necessarily that it's wholly bad, it's just not necessarily ready yet. There's plenty of reasons why a rejection might come, but it shouldn't put anybody off. I think that's the thing, and I've kind of learnt to deal with rejection as an artist. It's part and parcel of being a creator and wanting to get your work out there, I think. So it's something that I've learned to deal with over time. So it doesn't scare me in that respect. So what makes me so scared of sharing my work then? First of all, it's important that I acknowledge that this fear or anxiety is pretty irrational. I do know this. but it doesn't stop my brain from doing a number on me on occasion. My fears is, I guess, sort of existential in some respects, and they definitely like link back to a lack of self-confidence, to that insecurity that I have in myself in general. I don't know how else to put it really, other than to say that I fear invisibility. I'm anxious about releasing my work, which is essentially, you know, it feels very personal. It's kind of a piece of me into the world, to a deafening silence. I don't fear people saying mean things about it. First of all, like Troy says in his video, that is highly unlikely to come from agents and publishers. Even if they reject a submission, they're not going to be mean about it. Mean comments on social media or in reviews, and I mean mean here, not just negative but considered reviews, that's always something that might happen, because some people are just dicks. And that's how I look at those kind of responses to something. They're just mean. They kind of make me laugh. You know, it's kind of like, have you really not got anything better to do with your time or anything of real value to say about the work other than to be mean about it? So yeah, if someone's going to be like an asshat about the work, then I've kind of got no time for that opinion whatsoever. And I don't even fear like mediocrity, so to speak, either. It's not like I've ever really had aspirations of winning, you know, the Booker Prize or the Turner Prize with my artwork. It's just not something that's ever really entered into my head. If I'm middle of the road and I reach a few people who enjoy my stuff, then I'm kind of a happy bunny. I'm easily pleased in that respect. But I'm kind of contrary, perhaps, in that, like, I don't write or create art for other people per se. You know, for, you know, kind of their consumption. More for myself. It's kind of, creation is kind of it's a compulsion in a lot of ways. I need to be creative. But having said that, I do also want to have a voice and be heard. Art and writing is very much kind of how I engage with the world. And so like my fear is that like any invisibility, if that were to happen when I put myself out there, that wouldn't really do anything for my self-confidence. I think that could like knock me. Criticism of my work would be far preferable to kind of a metaphorical kind of tumbleweed blowing across the plane of my creative existence. You know, at least with criticism or, you know, negative, you know, response to my work, I can learn from that and get better. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, so that's one of the sides of the fear. And the other kind of side of it, connected to that and to my lack of self-confidence, is that even though I want to have a voice in the world, you know, and kind of exist in that space, if you like, I have a little demon who sits on my shoulder and who delights in trying to convince me that I don't have anything of value to say. That it doesn't matter what I do or say in my work. I'm not saying anything new or useful or entertaining, so why embarrass myself by speaking at all? And I used to listen to that demon a lot, which I don't anywhere near so much anymore. And there are times, you know, when he still does get the better of me. But I have learned through experience that he is completely wrong. As I say, I know this fear is irrational and unfounded, but it is not easy to get rid of. When it gets the better of me, my reaction is just to not release things, not to show my work, because if I never do, then my fears can't become reality. It's self-sabotage 101. Do you know what I mean? It's like I have an extremely hermity nature in general, like physically and mentally, and I just wall myself up in my own little world, and I wrap myself in a little kind of protective blanket, not protective, and that's not living, that's hiding. And I want to have a voice, yet I'm gagging myself. So it's like, I know that this is like just something that I'm gonna always feel, this fear, this anxiety, but it's about getting over it, and that's the main point of this. Is like, this is how do I get over this? So as I say, I've got a lot better at dealing with all of this with my artwork, but I'm new to writing, and that's probably why I'm experiencing the fear a little bit more. Like, the demon's been a little bit more active, a little bit more vocal again recently. So yeah, the writing's an unknown quantity, so that's probably why I'm kind of just noticing it a bit more. But this is how I'm going to handle it. So I'm going to put this out there in this video and see if any of this info might help anybody else out there experiencing anxieties about getting their stuff out there. So I think the first thing, and one of the most important things, is I'm going to share my work in progress. Getting others to read it, I think the importance of like that can't be overstated, really. It's like, and with that, I'd say that, for me particularly, I need to make sure that I leave enough time to get eyes on it and get the feedback from that reading from people, to implement the useful stuff before submitting something, especially if it's on a deadline for a submission, like with Garbology. I need to consider the fact that I'm going to have to, work that into my timetable. Like, I know my Garbology submission could have been better if I'd have left more time to get my sister and my mum to have a look at it. Like, my sister really loves trashy stuff, and kind of knows decent writing, and my mum's got writing experience herself and was an English teacher for 40 years, so she would pick up a lot of the kind of the grammatical stuff as well. And that was my original plan, to get them to look at it, but I ended up behind with it and kind of putting it off as well because I had other things on, or procrastinating or what have you, and I never got a chance to show it before I submitted it. And because of that, I was probably less confident in it, because I didn't know, I have no clue whether it's any good or not, because I've not shown it to anybody. So I can show my family, and I know that they'll be really supportive, and this is something that Troy said, it is really important to have people who will just support you, who will just be supportive and, buoy you up and all that kind of stuff. That's really important as well, to have people who will do that for you. But I also need a more, like, constructive, critical approach, something a bit more analytical. And I've got a few writer friends, fortunately, Troy included, and a couple of folks locally, that I need to show stuff to. I need to get that honest critique. And there is a fear that comes with showing that work, do you know what I mean, to people that you know and like respect as well, kind of, certainly with Troy and my writer friends, I know and like their work, so I respect their opinions on writing. So there's an anxiety that goes along with that, in terms of like, oh God, if mine's crap, then it's going to be embarrassing. But you just got to get over that, because it's, even if it is crap, it's like the only way you're going to get better is if you get that feedback. So it's like, got to keep the rational brain in check, online, and not let the demon and the irrational stuff creep in. The second thing I'm going to do is just keep talking to folks about these fears, roadblocks, etc. in writing in general, I think, because let's face it, stories are hard to write sometimes. Art is hard. It's not all, fun and roses and happy creation. It can be hard. As I say, I've got these couple of friends who are writers locally who I often meet for lunch, and we joke about our get-togethers as being kind of meetings of the creative support group, is what we kind of call them. But it is kind of what it is. And we always come away from those lunches inspired and emboldened and kind of really ready to create. We often come home from those lunches to our respective houses and spend the afternoon creating manically, because we've really got into it just by talking about our projects and about any roadblocks we've had. So that's a really important factor. I know Troy talked about having like the seed of an idea of his own for getting together some sort of a group, an online group, sort of more tailored towards kind of like getting work ready for submitting. to chat about that rather than the fear anxiety side of things. But if anybody does want to chat about this kind of anxiety, confidence, kind of side of things, or get any input on stumbling blocks in projects, anything like that, do drop into my Writing Waffle channel on Discord. I will be chatting about my own projects there, and I want it to be a safe space to talk openly about your own projects, process, difficulties, etc. So do come and join us on there if you just want to have a vent about how fucking hard writing can be at times. So that's the second one. Keep talking about it, and I think that it's kind of it's a problem halved. A problem shared is a problem halved, and also when you talk about stuff, you inevitably find that there are other people suffering the same sort of anxieties, worries, etc. And it kind of, for me, that lessens my own, because I know I'm not alone. So that group is there should you want it. To combat this irrational fear of kind of shouting into the void, should we call it, I've got a little bit of a plan sort of forming for that. I've got some really short pieces of kind of microfiction, flash fiction that are pretty much finished. So I think I'm just going to make them into a couple of zines, and just release them online for free. Point people to them, wherever they are. I'll make them, digital so folks can download them and read them, or so that they can print them out themselves and put them together into the little zines. But I'm not, the main point is I'm not going to track how many downloads there are. I'm just going to release these things and let them live in the wild, unmonitored in their natural habitat. I think part of the issue for me, certainly, but I think generally with kind of today's world, is that when we share our work online, particularly on social media, this is coming from the art side of things for me, there's a certain commodification of ourselves. And I need to learn to separate my sense of self-worth from my art, and I include writing within that, and not judge its success by how many people see it or like it, click like on an Instagram post, etc. When I'm being rational, I'm very much of the opinion that even if my work only reaches one person and that they get some enjoyment out of it, then that's a success. If I've made some sort of connection with just one other human being, that's what it's all about, really. Because when I do create, it is, as I say, that's how I kind of engage with the world. It's about communication for me, I think, and so that's important. That's the important thing for me, is if it reaches one person, that's a success. I think the biggest thing that I need to do personally when I do get anxious when it comes to the writing and my artwork, going forwards and stuff, is to remember some of the times when I've submitted artwork and had great things come of it. My wife reminds me of these all the time when I have little wobbles. And I do need to go back to these memories, as they are proof that my anxieties, etc., are somewhat unfounded, to say the least. I will share one of these examples with you. I think it's a good illustration of what can happen when you are pushed to get over that fear. So in April 2014, my wife sent me some details of an art submission opportunity at the People's History Museum in Manchester, which is very close to where I live, which is a museum about, it's the history of politics and democracy, basically, in the UK. I was really early in my art career at that point. I'd only been creating for a couple of years, and I was very, very underconfident in my voice and my skill level. But I put together a proposal for this opportunity, which was a 6-week micro residency, is what they termed it. And it could be on any political subject, basically. So I went for a sort of infographically style piece on the need for a proportional voting system for PR in the UK. And it came to a few days before the submission deadline, and my wife kind of checked in with me about how it was all going, and I kind of, sheepishly sort of admitted that I'd pretty much decided that I wasn't going to submit it, even though I'd finished it, pretty much finished it, finished the proposal. Because I was just sure that it was rubbish and it didn't stand a chance, that there'd be so many more better submissions than mine. And so what was the point, basically? Why face that rejection? And, you know, Sarah, my wife, was extremely firm with me, should we say, and in the nicest possible way, basically ordered me to submit it. And thank God she did, because I was astounded to reach the shortlist of 10 proposals, which was out of about 90 submissions. And that in itself was enough to give me an absolute ton of confidence. But I was still pretty sure that I wasn't going to win the residency. It went to a public vote after that for the finalists, and I saw the proposals of the other finalists, and I was kind of like, yeah, no, I ain't winning this. And I didn't. I think my idea came in 7th overall, but it left me really stoked that I got that far. So I kind of drew a line under it, and you know, kind of moved on to kind of getting stuff ready for other potential submission opportunities. But it didn't end there. About 3 months later, I got a call from the museum curator, because the staff there had really, really liked my proposal in terms of both art style and, you know, how I was presenting the information, what I had to say, how I was saying it, etc. And they wanted to commission me for a different exhibition. And so I actually ended up as artist in residence for a whole year. And I created this sprawling art and design piece about the election process in the UK, which tied into the actual 2015 general election. If I can find some pictures, I'll pop some pictures up. The experience of it was like it was absolutely incredible. I got to meet Jon Snow, not Game of Thrones Jon Snow, Jon Snow the journalist Jon Snow. UK viewers might be more familiar with Jon Snow than some of my followers overseas. But he's kind of a bit of a hero of mine in terms of, you know, journalists. And so yeah, got to meet him, and he was lovely, and my work was reviewed in the Guardian and in the New Statesman, and like favourably reviewed, I might add. You know, it was good, decent reviews, and it was just incredible, absolutely incredible. And after that exhibition, I've kind of gone on to work with the museum on other exhibitions. They commissioned me again for one on like Brexit, and I've just been asked to work with them again on an upcoming exhibition as well, which is amazing. So like just in the last couple of weeks, they've got in touch and want me to do some work for them on an exhibition about protest posters. And none of that would have happened if I hadn't have listened to my wife and submitted the artwork for that micro-residency 10 years ago. A micro-residency that I didn't even end up winning. So the moral of this story is, obviously, if you don't try, you don't get. You know, I've got to get stuff done and out there if I want any chance of selling any of it or anybody seeing anything of it. And I know that when I do that, when I've done that in the past, good things have come of it. And I have to keep my mind on that every time I wobble about getting work out there or applying for opportunities, things like that. I mean, it's worth mentioning that I was terrified doing that first big exhibition at the museum throughout the entire year. I remember just constantly thinking, oh God, they're going to wake up tomorrow and they're going to realise that what have we done? We've got this inexperienced person to come in and do this big exhibition, and it's not what we want, and you know, it's not good and all that kind of stuff. No, it didn't happen. It's all just in my head. So, you know, it's like I've got to keep my head on straight. What's important to, I think, to remember as well is that it's okay to be scared. It's okay to feel a certain amount of fear, you know, and anxiety, because that can put energy into stuff. It can push us to be our best. But it's when the fear and anxiety wins out, when it actually stops me from doing things, that's a problem. I've let that happen in the past, but I'm determined this year that I don't let that happen. I'm kind of in a good headspace at the moment where I can go, no, this is the year when you get shit done and you get shit sent out. I think getting a submission into Garbology at the end of last year was a huge turning point. Just submitting something, whether it gets accepted or not, that's kind of almost by the by at this point, in terms of I managed to get something finished and submitted. That was quite a big deal just to get that in. And to be honest, that probably wouldn't have happened had I not said, oh yeah, I'll get something in for that to Troy when the project was announced, and I kind of felt like, okay, well, you've said that now, you've committed to that, so you need to do it. But also just the gentle nudges from Troy about the deadline, things like that, just gentle kind of pushes. You know, I do need a little bit of a push to do stuff, you know, as illustrated by my wife, basically, you know, pushing me off the cliff to get that proposal in for the micro residency. It's like I do need that, I think, otherwise I tend to, you know, back out a little bit sometimes. But yeah, definitely getting that submission in felt really good, getting that in. So that's kind of a bit of a hurdle kind of leapt, I think, on that one. And I've also got to say, like, being on BookTube and putting myself out there for the last year or so, and being both surprised and somewhat overjoyed at the fact that folks actually just want to hear me chat, at me, you know, just being me. That's been a big boost to self-confidence. I've said this before on the channel. So, you know, thanks to all of you for that. That has made a difference on that side of things, in terms of, you know, me being more confident in my own opinions, voice, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's enough waffle from me on this anyway for now. As I say, I will be chatting more about this on Discord as I kind of really properly get into my stride with my writing stuff. The link to the Discord is in the description, so yeah, do come and join us on there if you want to chat about writing, share anything, work in progress wise, all that kind of stuff. You are most welcome, anyone. Check out Troy's videos too, they will also be linked in the description. So thank you very much for watching today, folks. As always, do leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be back on Friday to chat about how I got on with Foundation by Isaac Asimov, which is my next read in my science fiction for the Somewhat Hesitant series. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.